In this 1878 tintype, Billy the Kid relaxes with fellow regulators, playing croquet on the dusty New Mexico ground. The scene flips the myth of the perpetually armed gunfighter, revealing youthful leisure between rides in the violent Lincoln County War. Few itinerant photographers captured downtime. Note the cotton shirts, low-brimmed hats, and the discreet carbine in the background. Grebel's glass negative shows in 1888 a lone cowboy atop a Mustang, whip in hand and eyes fixed on the horizon. It is one of the earliest professional portraits of the cowboy archetype: rawhide chaps, striped shirt, and scarlet neckerchief. The sharpness reveals dust on the spurs and the cartridge belt seal, rare details in an era of slow shutters. 1888. 6 cowboys pin down a calf as the hot iron sizzles against its hide. Chaps shield them from heat and kicks. Clouds of dust hang like mist, and the horses wait behind an improvised fence. The scene lays bare the economic engine of the West, marking ownership in a land where barbed wire was still rare and cattle could stray for miles. 5 cowboys in 1887 cast their ropes over a gray wolf, freezing the instant the animal snarls against the dust. Hunts like this earned state bounties, as wolves decimated newly arrived herds. The image exposes the frontier mindset of subduing nature with lariat and gunpowder, decades before any wildlife preservation movement. 1891. A line of cowboys works in unison, pressing glowing irons into the hot hides of roped yearlings. In the background, a dust devil rises as hats wave to keep the tempo. The ritual, almost a rustic ballet, sealed the ranch's identity on fenceless prairies, where the burned-in brand stood as a deed of ownership. In the dim light of dusk, the cookie serves beans, strong coffee, and skillet bread around the chuck wagon. The cans clank, the fire crackles, and the cowboys rest their dust-covered boots after 12 hours of work. The photo in 1886 captures the troops' social bond. Eating together reinforced discipline in a territory without walls or clock, where only the ringing of the bell guided the routine. 1890. Facing the vast plain, a line of cowboys poses proudly under the pale blue sky. The XIT, with nearly 13 million acres, was then the largest contiguous ranch in the world, erected to finance the new Texas capital. Its TOXIT brands spanned 3 time zones. This extraordinarily rare image recalls the logistical magnitude of moving 150,000 head without fences. 6 men in 1911 with their hats pulled low face the photographer at the Black State Fair. They wear denim jackets, vivid bandanas, and display lassos ready for a skills contest. It is estimated that 1 in 4 cowboys was African American, but few obtained formal portraits. This photo debunks the myth of a monochromatic West and celebrates the expertise relegated by white chroniclers. In 1890, in an improvised tent studio, the cowboy poses erect, his Winchester resting on his leg and a gleaming spur. The painted backdrop contrasts with the harsh reality of the prairies, granting postcard dignity to an invisible worker. The image, rescued from a family album, provides iconic proof of black presence in rodeos and cattle patrols of the Indian Territory. 1885. A young Apache wears suede chaps over his tribal blanket, a Winchester rifle supported on the lap of the brown horse. After the Apache Wars, many natives adopted the cowboy profession on reservations and neighboring ranches, mixing trail know-how with their own rights. The portrait, rare for its proximity and serene pose, bears witness to cultural resistance within the Anglo-American cattle economy. Hand-colored postcard in 1906 shows an anonymous cowgirl wielding a Winchester carbine and flaunting silver spurs over a long skirt. In the heart of the Victorian era, the confident pose shatters stereotypes of feminine modesty and anticipates women's entry into professional rodeos. Distributed at agricultural fairs, the postcard became an icon of independence in the West. 1890. Daughter of German ranchers, Blossom poses mounted beside the chestnut, rifle resting on the saddle. The portrait, rescued from a family album, reveals the routine of female vigilance against cattle thieves and coyotes. Suede chaps and a red bandana prove that masculine attire was adopted by frontier women long before suffrage laws. Cabinet card in 1890 by Rachel I. Mills shows 5 men of the West before a draped backdrop and pedestal. 2 sit, 3 stand behind. The center figure smokes a cigar. Wide hats, wool coats, and high boots betray the cold of the high desert. On the back it reads, James D. Glenn, Frank Taylor, and Johnson, all friends of Glenn. A rare female perspective on frontier brotherhood. By the crackling campfire in 1895, 3 cowboys nap wrapped in wool blankets, using saddle and rifle as pillows. Captured by photographer Ella Watson, the image reveals the precariousness of the bedroll on the trail. Without tents, they relied on the desert's clear sky. In the background, the Florida mountains bathed in moonlight amplify the sense of frontier isolation. John C. H. Grable's classic portrait depicts Fred Pierce, described in the copyright as a notable cowboy of Wyoming, standing atop a dark Mustang, flat-top hat firmly in place, and a .44 caliber cartridge belt at his waist. The precision of the glass negative reveals his lasso, saddlebag, and prairie dust, crystallizing the image of the solitary cowboy on the plains before barbed wire fences. In the photo, roundup on range west of Fort Pierre, c. 1903, P.H. Kellogg freezes the frenzy of hundreds of cattle compressed into a natural amphitheater on the banks of the Missouri. Riders trace a circle of golden dust. The chuck wagon appears in the background as a mobile headquarters, while the clear sky foreshadows the Dakotan winter that demanded branding and loading the cattle before the ice. 12 Rangers line up in front of the Lamotta Ranch, 1873, Winchesters resting on the ground and cartridge belts stuffed full. At the time, the newly reformed force fought banditry and land disputes on the border with Mexico. The rigid pose, waxed mustaches, and wool vests in the Texas heat reveal the paramilitary pride of a unit that served both the law and colonization policy. 1880. With the slow shutter pushed to its limit, the photographer captured the instant a ranger fires his carbine without dismounting. The dust kicked up by the gallop mingles with black powder smoke, while the loose rein betrays absolute control of the horse. Training in mounted shooting was vital on patrols against cattle rustlers and indigenous uprisings across the railless expanses. Black members of the 9th Cavalry pose armed before marching toward Wounded Knee. Dark blue capes and polished boots contrast with the cutting cold of the Badlands. Despite defending national borders, they suffered segregation and lower pay. This photo, taken by a military correspondent, records the tension of troops sent to contain the last Sioux uprising. 1890. Wearing heavy buffalo coats and fur gloves, African-American soldiers of the 25th Regiment line up against the Yellowstone's glacial wind. The fort served as an outpost for winter expeditions. The portrait highlights adaptation to extreme climates and the dedication of men who, despite being relegated to remote garrisons, ensured vital communications between posts and northern mines. In the heart of Main Street in 1870, Al Swearengen's infamous bar displays kerosene lamps and rows of bottles lined up like trophies. Newly arrived miners, gunfighters, and prostitutes shared the sticky bar, while dealers shouted the plays of faro. The photo predates the arrival of the railroad and captures the gold fever that transformed rough pine logs into stages of vice and sudden fortune. Inside a saloon clouded by cheap cigar smoke, 4 players lean over worn cards, revolvers resting within reach. Faro, the West's most beloved and outlawed game, moved fortunes in a single night. The photographer used a long exposure, leaving trails of nervous gestures and kerosene lamps. The image documents the constant tension between leisure, risk, and violence in powder keg boomtowns. Bottles from floor to ceiling reflect lantern light, creating an amber mosaic. A bartender in a white apron serves red-eye whiskey to dust-covered laborers fresh from the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad. The elaborate decor, beveled mirrors, sawdust on the floor, deer heads, reveals the ostentatious civility desired at the prairie's edge, where the next train could bring both ladies and thieves. 1890. On rough boards, the hand-painted sign reads, "Fine liquors and cigars." Lumbermen's wagons park beside mail pouches, proving the saloon also served as a post office and local courtroom. This snapshot, found in a municipal archive, reveals how the peaceful Northwest frontier replicated the saloon model. Bar, out-of-tune piano, and disputes settled over glasses of bourbon. Exhausted after the day's work, the cowboy rests on his saddle, hat tipped, gaze lost on the Ozark Plateau's horizon. The soft, late-afternoon light highlights the coarse jute of his shirt and sweat stains on his chaps. Rescued from an attic in 2024, the photo demonstrates the spread of cowboy culture east of the Mississippi, showing that the myth was not exclusive to the Great Prairies.